And with the latest revelations that President Donald Trump may have asked then FBI Director James Comey to end the investigation into Michael Flynn, many Democratic lawmakers and others are accusing the commander-in-chief of obstruction of justice.
But the question is, what does that exactly mean in this context? So to break it all down for us is Rikki Klieman. She's a CBS News legal analyst, and she joins us now. Good to see you, Rikki.
Nice to see you both.
All right, so break down for our viewers, what does obstruction of justice mean, and can you infer from what we know from this Comey memo that the president intended to obstruct justice?
Well, you raised the most important word, which is the word intent.
Right.
In order to have obstruction of justice so that it is a crime, or in the case of possible impeachment, a high crime or misdemeanor, you are looking at the intent to interfere with the fair administration of justice. It's in essence the idea of a corrupt influence on someone or something. So the memo in and of itself raises the flag, but it doesn't necessarily hoist it all the way up. So the powers that be in Washington are precisely correct. It is time for an investigation to decide whether or not you have the true makings of obstruction of justice or something else. So it's going to take a lot of investigation. Number one, did he in fact say what Mr. Comey says he said? So let's assume, just for the sake of argument, that he did say that. Then what was his intent when he simply wanted it to go away? What's his intent when he says the words, "let it go"? Well, Mr. Comey may surprise us all, depending on his reaction to what was said. Did he, in fact, take it as meaning that the president wanted him to kill the investigation? Did he then go back and do what he always did? All of my sources in law enforcement, local, state, and federal, all say to me that Jim Comey always wrote memoranda to the file. This was his habit.
All right, so on this idea of intent, does this mean that his defense, President Trump, could be, well, I just didn't mean that, and then that's okay to sort of wipe away this idea of intent?
Well, it becomes, as was said before, he said, he said. So let's say, for the sake of argument, Jim Comey says, I took it, that he intended, when he said this, for me to kill this investigation. And Donald Trump says, look, I was just doing what I always do. I was just being Donald Trump. I was saying, look, he's a good guy. Jim Comey agreed with me, he's a good guy. I was saying we should let it go. It was kind of like just a fluff off my tongue. I certainly didn't mean to impede any investigation or to, in fact, change the course for Jim Comey. But the proof, ultimately, is what happens when you look at the whole arc, because you don't just look at intent at the moment that the words were said. What you have here is not only the conversation, if it in fact occurred the way Jim Comey wrote, but you have what else followed. First of all, you start with Flynn being fired. Then you have the conversation with Comey. Then allegedly, Trump asked Comey to take a loyalty oath to him, not to the Constitution. Then you go further on, perhaps Jim Comey went forward and said, I need more resources for the Russia investigation. And then Jim Comey gets fired. Well, that's a big arc.
You know, it's interesting, and Erica raises an interesting point. I think you're starting to hear that from lawmakers right now. They say, well, if this was an attempt by the president to obstruct justice, then why didn't Director Comey bring that to the attention of Congress right away? That may, and I'm asking you this as a lawyer, would that provide some cover for the president if Jim Comey testifies and he says, well, I didn't think it obstruction of justice, it was just the president being Donald Trump. And that's why I wrote it in my notes, but in my mind it was an obstruction of justice, which is why I didn't bring it to Congress's attention.
Well, but wait, he's the FBI though, so like
yes.
He doesn't have any prosecutorial,
The question is, who should he have brought it
exactly.
to?
That's my question is with regards to the
someone.
Congress, right?
Should he have brought it to the Justice Department? Well, perhaps yes, perhaps no. Should he have brought it to the Senate Intelligence Committee? Perhaps yes, perhaps no. We really need to know what Jim Comey was thinking. By the way, we also need to know, since Jim Comey had the habit of writing memoranda, are there other memoranda where, in fact, there was a conversation by phone or otherwise with Donald Trump that is memorialized? Now, the best defense for Donald Trump and for those who support him is, look, Jim Comey didn't think this was obstruction, or of course he would have told someone in a higher authority. On the other side of that, Jim Comey could say, look, I'm in the middle of the Russia investigation. Right. I have to see where the investigation goes. I have to follow the facts wherever they take me. So this is something that we are going to hear a lot about. I know there's a tweet every afternoon, or there's another firestorm every afternoon.
Why does
this
the news
is not
cycle
going
hate
away.
happy hour?
This is not going away. We are going to have an investigation by some committee.
I'm curious, though, just one more question. You know, President Trump does have, obviously, White House legal counsel. You think he's going to bring in his own personal lawyer to defend him?
That's actually a very interesting question, and it's one that I haven't thought about, because one of the things that we do know about Donald Trump is he has certain people we believe that he confides in and he takes their advice, who are not lawyers. So is he going to use White House counsel solely, or is he also going to seek advice from a formidable lawyer in this arena? This is a very specialized arena.
Finally, Rikki, it's a question I asked Bob Cusack earlier. A lot of lawmakers are talking, Democratic lawmakers are talking about impeachment. There's also been talk about the 25th Amendment. When you were sitting here, I thought I saw you shaking your head no. The 25th Amendment, which says that if the president's incapacitated or has committed bribery or treason, high crimes and misdemeanors, which who knows what that means when it was written by the Founding Fathers, could there be a case from members of Congress to say, look, the president clearly has some issues that we think make him not the best president to have, and we need to think about doing or implementing the 25th Amendment? I saw you sort of nodding.
No, I mean, there's a big difference between not the best president to have and someone who is mentally incapacitated. Again,
I didn't want to say that, but yeah.
No, there's a huge differential there, and I do think that when I hear from people about the 25th Amendment, that we are so far away from that it is not something to be considered. We're even far away from the ultimate impeachment word. There has to be an investigation.
Right. It took 2 years for Nixon to get to the level where finally he was going to be impeached, and thus he had to resign. And in the case of Andrew Johnson and Bill Clinton, the impeachment, they've stayed in office.
They stayed in office, and you also have to remember, which I think is important, majority vote for impeachment in the House. That's the accusation, just the charge. 2/3 to convict in the Senate. Let's keep that in mind. We're a long way from there today.
Rikki Klieman, always so good to have you. Thank you for stopping by.
You.
Appreciate it.